My name is Johan van Niekerk, and we are discussing the business formula. In this series, we are looking at how do you start a business, how do you go from idea to startup to small business to medium-sized business. In this clip today, we are discussing one of the 4 elements that it takes to grow from a small business into a medium-sized business. How do you go from self-employed to business owner? How do you get to that financial stability that everybody so craves? How do you get outside of the economy and start creating your own? We discussed in the last few videos, like I said, foundation to growth. I like visuals. I've used this visual of how do you build a house. You start at the foundation, then the walls, then the roof, and then you complete the house. That was the first part of the series. And the second part of the series that we're discussing now is, of course, this medium-sized business. How do you grow into a medium-sized business? In the last video, I discussed the foundation. I gave the overview of the 4 elements. And I discussed the foundation, which is the first element. In this video, we are going to be discussing the second element, business development. How do you keep growing this business? How do you keep growing your offering to your clients? Let's start talking about business development, the second of 4 elements in growing your business from a small business into a medium-sized business. Now, what is business development? Hey, business development as a whole, the concept behind it is you need to make sure that you can meet your clients where they're at, that you solve more than one problem. A small business is normally, they are very, very niche. They look at one specific element, they solve one specific problem, and then they grow from there. One of the biggest mistakes small businesses make is they are too diversified. You need to focus when you're a small business. When you grow into this sector now, this is where you can start looking at a little bit of diversification. Not serious, we're not talking 180 degrees different. You're not a car dealership that suddenly opens a lingerie store. That will never work. It's sort of like you're a car dealership and you suddenly start offering servicing of vehicles as well, maybe changing the tires, things like that. It's additional elements to your core business. This is what business development is. It's expanding. It's becoming more efficient with what you are offering. And it is essentially all about future growth. Great. So where do we start? The first thing that we have to look at is you have to really start creating a business blueprint. Again, one of the biggest issues that we face growing from small to medium-sized is actually the management of people. You would have employed people while you were in your small business. Again, I'm a big fan, technology first. You first employ technology before you employ people because, hey, let's be honest, technology these days is a bit more reliable than people. But the other side is technology also makes people much more efficient. So technology first, but at this point in time, you would have appointed quite a few people already. You might be at the point where you've employed 15, 20 people, and this is where you start transitioning. And this is one of the big problems is that, hey, how do you manage 20 people? And just an example, people will generally, they knock on your door, they walk in, they present you with a problem, you solve it on the spot. Because you are that. You are all things to all people. But now it starts becoming difficult because you have too many people to do that with. You cannot be a reactive leader anymore. You have to start becoming a proactive leader. And how do you start doing that? It starts with a blueprint. Once we've done the foundation, you have to do the business's blueprint. You have to be clear. You have to show your employees how does the business work, step by step, bit by bit. How does the business work in every department? So there needs to be a real blueprint. This is a very big subject that we'll be getting more into later in the series. I don't have the time to delve into it today, but the business blueprint is sort of the guidelines that you set for your employees in terms of how does your product or service line work? What flows into what? How does the business work? Where do you actually make money so that they can understand where to add value to the clients? But also have to look at, I mentioned goals as the foundation. This is where we delve a little bit more into the goals. How do you develop the business? Where do you really want to go as a business here? What type of products do you want to bring to market? You know, when Elon Musk started Tesla, I don't like punting other people, but hey, fellow South African, I have to give a shout out there. But when Elon Musk started Tesla, for example, what was his goals? He wanted to change the world. That's what he wanted to do. And hey, whether you like electric vehicles or not, give him that. He's completely changed the landscape. That was one of his goals, is he wanted to change how people move, the mobility of people, and he's managed to do that. Big, lofty goals, but this is what you have to think about. What do you want the business to do? What impact do you want the business to have? Another big element that I think this is probably the big part, this is one of the biggest mistakes that small businesses make, is systemization. Systemization is something that's such a boring subject. It's not exciting, but systemization is the secret to scaling. When you have systemized enough in your business, you will be able to scale at a rate that you cannot believe. Otherwise, you'll be constantly putting out fires, constantly making decisions on behalf of people. And when you start systemizing, this is where you truly have the ability to scale. We spoke about unit level economics a little bit earlier in the series, in the small business side, but this is where this truly comes into its own. When you fully understand how that works, this is where you can start systemizing things and it gets off your plate. It sounds silly, but I actually have a client that when you do onboarding and offboarding processes, which I'll be talking about shortly as well, they are so systemized that the vast majority of things are pre-recorded. They've got pre-recorded things in the company that shows them how to use coffee machines, how to clean them, where to find toilet paper, how to order stationery. There's so many different things, and the systemization is so key to making you as the business owner more efficient so that you don't have to be dealing with these things. You also still have limited resources. You are not in a position where cash is flowing freely and you can just afford to spend. Hey, you have to be efficient with your resources. And so systemization here is so important on so many different levels. Then we get also to processes. And processes is part of this whole thing of how do you regulate people? How do you make it easy for people to work for you? To give them authority to make decisions, but not let them make decisions that's way outside of the norm. And so the processes here, this is essentially this whole business development. This is the steel that you use when you build a story for a skyscraper. This is the backbone of what's going to happen. This is the backbone that carries that whole floor, that whole division that's eventually going to be working in that area. There's so many different ones. I can't touch on all of them. I'm going to touch on a couple of them. I spoke about on and offboarding processes. Hey, one of the biggest things, we actually know that it's 7 times more expensive to hire new employees than it is to keep existing ones. And so you're going to have to hire new employees. How do we make sure that that's as efficient as possible? It takes between 2 and 3 months for people to settle into a business. And you need to have somebody or something that guides and helps them find their way in this new business that they've just entered into. On and offboarding, that is so important. And this can all be done these days with videos and things like that. There's so much of it. You can help them. You can give them manuals. You can show them, how do I apply for leave? How much leave do I have? When am I supposed to take my leave? Who do I speak to? Who's my superiors? Like I mentioned earlier, the coffee machine, for example. Where do I find toilet paper if the toilet paper is out? It sounds like silly things, but these are the things that frustrate you on a daily basis when you have to deal with these things. When the employees don't know where they are. It's the same thing. Think about yourself. I always think, listen, if somebody takes you and says, hey, we're going on a camping trip, and you think, hey, that's awesome, and you go to the middle of the woods, they drop you in the middle of the woods, and they say, thank you, here you are, cheers, see you in a week. You're completely lost. You don't know where you are. You don't know what you're supposed to do. Nobody prepared you for this. If somebody just told you, you would have brought a tent. You didn't know. And it's the same thing in business. We sort of expect people that we employ, hey, they just need to know what they are doing. But we need to understand that there's different elements here. There's soft skills, there's hard skills. Hard skills being the technical skills when you hire, but the soft skills is also people skills. And then there's the stuff in the internal things. How do you like to work? How do you like to operate? And this people have to learn. You can employ the most skilled heart surgeon in the world in your medical practice, okay? And you can say, this guy, this lady, perfect. They are going to know exactly what to do. But the thing is, they might know what to do with a patient, but they are not sure how it works in your clinic, in your practice. They don't know where to find the scalpels. They don't know how the appointment booking system works. All of these things is where this onboarding, offboarding stuff comes in. And all of this can be digitized. Most of these things can be handled. So that takes a lot of the effort and the energy away from you or your employees at that point in time. Employment planning, I mentioned that in the previous video that we'll be talking a little bit more about this. There should be a process for employment planning. This is something that you should be constantly doing, realizing, listen, looking at my organogram, looking at where I am in the business, where do I foresee problems so that you hire proactively and not reactively? Because when you hire reactively, the chances of making a wrong hire is going through the roof. if you have the time to hire, you generally get a better candidate, a candidate more suitable, both in terms of technical skills, both in terms of soft skills, but also in terms of cultural adaptability. Do they fit into your corporate culture? So again, if you're proactive about that, planning what type of employees you need, what type of roles, when you're going to need them, and proactively do that, have a process for that so that your employees can identify when they need support. These are the things that helps with business development. Then a couple of easier ones. Hey, an intranet. You actually need an intranet at this point in time. You need a closed system that you can give your employees access to, then where they can get access to all of these things, the stuff that is important to your business, your library, your knowledge that you have captured. All of this needs to be on an intranet in your business. Again, we'll go more into detail into this into the stuff in the future. I'm just touching on some of these subjects to give you an idea of what this business formula is like that we speak about. And while I'm on that subject, remember that all of this, the checkpoints, I have created for you a checklist that is available to you, is free to you. Click on the link below and download the free checklist so that you may check in your business what is it that you need and what do you potentially have or what you don't have. At least it gives you an overview and you become aware of what you don't know and what you don't have. Another thing, now that is mentioned, we look at, hey, interns. Interns is a great way to do business development. You start training people from the start. When you're a small business, interns is a difficult thing. You need to put a lot of energy and effort into interns. But as you grow into a medium-sized business, you have a little bit more resources available, and you can start taking interns in and you train them from the start. It's generally, my philosophy is it's easier to train somebody from the start to grow into your business, to do things the way you like it done, than it is to bring somebody who knows and has a way of doing things and trying to convince them to change in your new business. So interns is a great way. This is where you can start experimenting with them and you can start seeing you help other people, but at the same time, you get the benefit of growth. Strategic planning, also, that's very important at this point in time. Strategically planning going forward. It's not just goals anymore. It's not just dreams anymore. It's actually strategic planning. Strategically, where do you see the markets going? Where is your product going? Where's your industry going? Big, big things happening. The world, again, I mentioned it before, is in such turmoil at the moment. We have to start planning where it's going politically. There's so many changes going on at the moment. It's so volatile. Even in the traditionally stable countries, politics are volatile, and that politics influences the economies, and economies influences our businesses. There's a lot of things that we have to take into account. These days, people are also very emotional. They react on their emotions. There's a couple of great examples out there where companies make catastrophic mistakes in terms of marketing, and where it cost them billions and billions and billions of dollars because they were not aware of what was going on. This is part of the strategic planning, is understanding where the world is going, predicting where it's going, and making sure that your company has a growth path, a trajectory to that. We also look at this point in business development. Another element is automation. How much can we get automated? Like I said before, I believe in employing technology before you employ people, but at this point in time, we can start looking at how do you go from systems that you've been creating in any event since you were a small business, how do you get to the point of automation? And again, automation is possible on so many different levels. It's just a question of cost. But at this point in time, the efficiency that automation brings us a lot of time, absolutely worth it, despite sometimes a higher cost. We also have to look at, like I say, like when we're looking at the political landscape and we're looking at the economic landscape and where we are going, we have to look at product and service development. As our clients develop, as the worlds develop, we have to make sure that whatever we offer stays up to date with that. If there's a couple of great examples out there, originally, I can think of Kodak, I can think of Blockbuster Video. They did not see the advent of streaming. They did not see the advent of digitalized cameras. And they went from massive companies to essentially bankrupt in a very short space of time. And because they were not aware of where the market was going, what also happened is they had opportunities to purchase. Blockbuster had the opportunity to purchase Netflix right in the beginning when they had a lot of cash, and they laughed it off. They didn't think the market would go where it went. Look at where they are today. Netflix, biggest streaming service in the world, and Blockbuster, non-existent. So again, this product and service development, we have to plan with it as we start looking at the schedule. We have to plan with it as we look at what's happening. Then the last element I'm going to touch on for today is training and development. you have to constantly look at how you are developing your people. How do you grow them? And in the world that we live in today, it's not enough anymore to just grow your people within the company. You have to look at how do you support them in more ways than one. We've returned to a point where we have to create a symbiotic relationship between employee and employer. We've gone from that symbiotic relationship in the 50s and 60s to a more company-focused orientation where employees are not that important, to a new orientation where in the first world, the employee is the center of the business, and businesses struggle to find employees and good employees at that. So part of this training and development is not just how do you keep your employees up to date with your products, your services, where your company is going, but also how do you help them live a holistically happy life? Can you support them in their private capacity so that they can, within reason, deliver the best they possibly can at work? We'll be looking there at elements like knowledge transfer. We spoke about internal videos. Training days, tracking, knowledge learning and knowledge transfer. There's quite a few elements in this, but this is the key essentially to then growing your business, is making sure that you create this hub of knowledge that you can constantly transfer to employees, both existing and new, and that they constantly grow their understanding, their knowledge, and their ability to help our customers, your customers, to keep on growing. Those were the elements today in terms of business development that I wanted to discuss with you. Again, remember, takeaway for today is there's so many things that you have to think about. You have to systemize. Systemization is key. And when you have a system, my system is this checklist that I spoke about a little bit earlier that you mustn't forget to download. That checklist is a system so that you do not lose sight of what needs to be done.